To be honest, I didn't expect to have that many, but we got an impressive set. Hi friends, I'm Meliora, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a very special set of perfumes that have one major thing in common that I managed, even though it's against my policy, I managed to get doubles and sometimes triples of them. A few of them I'm gonna just show you, and like I usually just do replacements. I buy them over and over and over. I think this is a really rare phenomenon given the flourishing perfume community, when, as usual, and as in any community that comes into social media, it often becomes kind of like infiltrated with a lot of marketing, with a lot of native advertising and general consumerism, right? Like the general strive for something new. So I went through all of my collection, which is 200 plus bottles, and I was actually surprised to find quite a few perfumes, or perfume sets, so to be precise, that I had a few of the same thing. I think I'm gonna start with a very cult favorite on my other channel. I think I hooked a lot of people into that perfume. And this is more special to me because it's so rare and not many people know about it. And this is a boutique release of Cartier. This is L'Heure Défendue, the seventh hour, so to speak, like in translation. The Hour collection has very diverse and very different fragrances. So by smelling one, you don't necessarily get a good impression of the other. But this was probably a first perfume that brought me outside of my comfort zone because of the way how rich and deep the dark chocolate patchouli are kind of blended here. The quality of the deep mossy gourmand that this is was out of this world. I randomly bought a vial like this from, I think it was Fragrance Net or something like that. It was just like a random sample, and at first I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then I kept coming back and back and back for it. I used up the whole thing. I didn't even know that Cartier had a boutique line. I knew nothing about it. And then I purchased myself 4 more from eBay because the full price on that was like way above what I was willing to spend. I was not sure if I would even be able to use up that much of the perfume because it's incredibly powerful. It has a lot of unique niche-like character to it. So one of my absolute favorites, partially because it was my gateway to really start digging unusual things, you know, something that is not meant to please others but rather offers you a journey in itself. And I got 4 of these. I completely used up, I think, 2 before. And basically, after hunting the bottle down for eternity, I managed to get one. So I have basically at this point a full-size bottle, which is, you know, significantly, I would say significantly for again, like how much of a powerhouse this is. Used up, and I have 2 more, and basically it's like, for me, I'll use as a travel size or maybe like gift to people of significance in my life, those who will appreciate it. Just to continue on kind of like this theme of deep, dark, rich perfumes, quite an opposite in a sense is I have 3 sets. Like, one is already in use, like I just dispersed them everywhere in my purses, and I have 2 more that are copies of the same thing. This is a fragrance set by Dali Haute Parfumerie Paris. So this is a boutique line by Salvador Dali. I did a whole comprehensive review on various perfumes that Salvador Dali brand has, including these. So you can like kind of learn more about like what's in here in depth from my other video. you're welcome to click on it. If I don't forget, I'll include the link below. Otherwise, it's kind of easy to find if you search my channel. So what I find to be very similar to this profile is that this deep, kind of oily, rich, very substantial quality of the scent. But what's, I think, comes in a interesting contrast, that if ours by Cartier are all very different perfumes, some of them are more similar than others, but otherwise you need to sample many of them before you really realize what's your favorite and really suits your particular taste. When it comes to the boutique line of Salvador Dali, they're all very closely knitted. It's almost like the same kind of, if you think about, almost like a French style of blending. It makes you think of something oily, rich, ambery in some sense, resinous in some other, with different accents. That's what I would say. And I was so in love with this particular line that I think Alberto Morillas was the one who produced it in terms of like the perfumer, that I couldn't choose one bottle that I would want to have. They're also not very cheap, to be completely honest. But these sets I found on, I think it was Fragrance Net, maybe. I found them for, I think, $7, something like that. So I got myself 2 more, so I have 3 sets of 5 perfumes each. I think it captures the whole range, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm very enthused. I'm just basically gonna like keep wearing them one after another. Another really dark, rich, beautiful perfume that I first got in the travel size was Irreverent by Histoire de Parfums. I think once in a while it appears in different online discount stores, and I quickly discovered that I'm a big fan of the way they blend their perfumes, especially their kind of classic line with the years and the portraits and operas. So this is their black line that kind of explores different facets of smoke, oud, and kind of like deep oudy gourmands. The Irreverent is just that, and I'm not the biggest fan of deep Arabic oud type of compositions, but this is the kind of smoky, oudy, rosy perfume that I just fell in love with. So I got one, and then when it appeared again on some like another discount site, I got myself another one. So basically it's just like keeping it as a backup, because this is only 15 ml, even though it's another very rich, very powerhouse type of perfume. I can't quite even see myself quickly finishing 15 ml. This is something that I use once, and it gives me enough of impression to kind of put it beside and like wait another week before I use it again. This is not something that I would wear every day, nor is the 7th Hour by Cartier, but this is kind of like a fun little exploration game for me from Histoire de Parfums, while the 7th Hour is just something to be treasured. I must say that I find that the Salvador Dali, their boutique line, I'm actually fairly easy to wear every day if you're into that kind of French animalic resinous style of blending. Another perfume that I have 2 backups for, because I just used up another bottle, I think, at the first half of 2020, is Anglemania by Vivienne Westwood. This is a trip down the memory lane. This is something that I wore in my kind of grunge days when I was young and rebellious. This is something that really brings back a lot of good memories, and surprisingly still wears well in the contemporary niche and designer landscape. This is essentially a designer perfume, which is discontinued. But what the Anglemania used to mean for me is the kind of a very punchy, powdery rose. I find this kind of profile very unusual, because usually something powdery makes us think of rather demure, soft, sophisticated, maybe elegant, or maybe soothing and very easily understandable, like, I don't know, Pure Poison or something like that. This is a loud powder, and this is kind of like a punchy type of rose perfume. There's like way more than the powder and the rose here for sure. And I love that it's very monotone. So it basically, it doesn't really open up and like transition into different facets like others. It actually is like a classic 90s slash early millennium kind of blend when it was like a mono accord. Like the perfume starts with a very bright, pungent, kind of very definite beginning, and it basically goes through all of the stages of the dry down with pretty much the same scent, the same kind of impression. It just like the volume dies down a little bit. It's a really interesting way, and I think it kind of like it's coming back in vogue in certain niche houses, at least that's what I see. Definitely has been used to death in designer market, but this is something that has a lot of points in terms of like a personal history type of allure, but also wears well, beautiful packaging, love the bottle, very, very contemporary sound of that fragrance as well. So I have two more. I'm basically just not opening them up until I feel like it's the right mood for it, because I want them to be in pristine condition when I open the boxes. This is a very big favorite when it comes to designer market in the United States. Somewhat of a mystery why this is not so easily found in Europe and Asia, but I think you can find it nowadays. At least it proliferated through a lot of online retailers. This is Elizabeth and James Nirvana Bourbon. I didn't really care for the original two Nirvanas that they issued, and these are Sisters Olsen, I think. That's their brand. I didn't really care for neither black or white Nirvana. I found them to be pleasantly generic, but when Nirvana Bourbon came to the market, it was just crazy. Everybody loved on it. It was such a hype. I don't know if you guys remember those times, but I definitely do, and I fell in love with it. This is such a boozy vanilla scent. For people who spend a lot of time in the States, is unmistakably a bourbon kind of scent. It's definitely not just the bourbon itself, but it has a lot of this kind of boozy movement in it. For people who are more like maybe for European side of things, they don't really have a strong association what really bourbon smells like. So for those of you who don't, it's basically oak wood, and this is the kind of wood that's used to age bourbon. So it all makes sense. So it's vanilla oud and a very creamy, soft wrapping. Delightful, easily recognizable, very unique to the designer market, just brilliant, and the packaging is just stellar. This is something that Tom Ford, like premium Estee Lauder, or maybe Victoria Beckham, and all kinds of like hard luxury brands could do for, I don't know, fifth of the price of Tom Ford perfumes. Really beautiful, worth trying if you like boozy and, you know, old-fashioned type of cocktails, like in terms of the olfactory exploration. I love it. I used to have 4 backups because it was like really cheap at some point, I think on FragranceNet. Actually rose in price quite a bit since then, gotta say. I feel like I had something to do with it, maybe not, maybe yes, we'll never know. But I gifted quite a few, and I just kept one for myself. So that's Nirvana Bourbon. Now let's talk about another favorite. Oh, this memory stings. This is La Mia Perla by La Perla. If a subscriber of mine sent me a decant of La Mia Perla, and I thought nothing of it at first, but the more I wore it, the more I realized it was like that particular like cashmere sweater kind of comfort. It's basically a soft, spicy floral, according to like different classifications. Some people feel that it's a little bit of like pink peppery kind of like prickliness there, almost like a wool sweater would give you. I don't feel like it's prickly, quite the opposite. I feel like it's super smooth. Some people call it like a vanilla ice cream as well. It has a lot of faces considering how nudie and quiet this fragrance is. So this bottle, which is 50 ml, I bought all the way from England because it was not a North American release. It was only released in Europe, at least at the time. I don't know about now. And it was very hard to find. And I used up the decant completely, and I just realized that I miss it. Considering that I have probably over a dozen of nudie, soft florals, you name it, like kind of like huggable perfumes. This one, I missed it. So, opened my wallet, ordered from abroad, and about a month later, it appeared on FragranceNet for quarter of a price. I think it was like twice as cheap. Yeah, okay, probably twice as cheap to be more precise. It's just painful. So I just couldn't stop myself. So I bought myself one backup. You probably can imagine like the sunk costs, like how much it burns, that I was like, should I get two just to feel like I got it at the end? I don't know, got what? Like, it's not really any kind of consolation or resolution to spend more money to get the same thing that you already have, but that was the logic at the time. So I have a backup of it. And another one that I want to show you is a similar story. Okay, let's talk about this one. Serge Lutens. I used to own over 20 full-size bottles by Serge Lutens. It was like a crazy period of sampling everything I could put my hands on from that brand, because in many ways they're one of the quintessential brands that made niche perfume market what it is today. It influenced so many trends, opened up so many avenues. It's iconic in many ways. So when I really got into niche perfumes, I kind of got crazy. And back in the day, you could find a lot of their perfumes in this kind of older packaging for $40, $50, $60. Some still can be found, but like not nearly as easy as it used to be. So with the growth of perfume community online, like, I think people are catching up and realizing that for $50 you can get like an incredible quality, both in terms of concept, packaging, the juice itself, for price twice as cheap at some very generic and very cheaply made designer release. So I think I downsized more, like I think I got rid of almost like 70%. If you're curious, I can make another video about Serge Lutens and what I used to have and when I ended up keeping in my collection. But yeah, this is the one that not only I decided to keep, but I decided to get a backup of. This is Dame Blonde by Serge Lutens. I have it. It's not Palais Royal, but like it's an older release. I do really prefer the kind of the design of the packaging back then. I don't really dig their new explorations, but I'm sure they'll find it eventually. They'll probably find a form factor that really works. So far, this is still, to me, is the most cohesive packaging of their fragrances. What's interesting about them is that they usually come just with a simple lid, the screw type of lid, and you actually insert the sprayer. That is a little bit iffy to me, because that means that it's not really hermetically, like it's not really sealed well, and that means that your fragrance will more likely and sooner basically go off if you don't use it, compared to like other fragrances that are properly insulated and sealed. So that's a definite minus. I presume the idea was to have like a refillable type of economy, or like a refillable type of option. Unfortunately, I don't really know of any refill services that Serge Lutens offers. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, because that would be awesome. Without the kind of like get a 30% discount if you refill your bottle, that would make a lot of sense, especially for fragrances that are your favorites. But without that option, having like just a simple screw-in spray is far from ideal, let's just say. Again, considering the full price for these bottles. Dame Blonde is one of the softest, most elegant, very subtly floral Suedes. It's delightful. I wouldn't really call it feminine or masculine, to be honest. It's just a light suede. If you like the scent of that, that's something to hunt down. So I have myself two. And another one that I just couldn't resist, and I got the second one, is Vitriol du Lait, which I think translates as a cruel carnation. Actually, here is a good example to show you the options that you have. This is how they usually arrive. You just unscrew the top and it's a splash bottle, and they give you an option to put in the spray. Spray comes with the bottle. So Vitriol du Lait is my favorite carnation scent to this day. I find that it beats the old classics. I find that it beats contemporary niche. One comparison that comes to mind is Sweet William by Cartier Barcelona. I got myself a decant from Scentbird, and so can you if you use my link below. And I do enjoy it. I think I either have it or already used it up, but even though I do really like watercolory scents and I do enjoy changing my scent through the day, this is partially why I don't like beast mode type of perfumes. I find them somewhat offensive in the way that they overwhelm the receptors and they kind of like make you numb in a way to other smells. But some of the contemporary niche is a bit too watered down. Just a bit much, even for my taste. And so is Sweet William by Cartier Barcelona. I absolutely enjoyed it, but I'm not sure I really want the full-size bottle. When it comes to Vitriol du Lait, this has teeth. A lot of people find that the opening is so sharp and almost like it's kind of piercing in a way. I don't get that. For whatever reason, maybe I'm anosmic to something, maybe some people are hypersensitive, I don't know. But I get the most hypnotic type of carnation in here. It's softly spiced, it's a little bit animalic at the same time, and it's not very often that I find both demure and animalic carnation scents. Usually carnation, when it comes either as like interpretation of a flower or the spice, it's often kind of loud, and it often has an association in our minds with like the screaming powerhouse type of perfumes of the 80s. This is not it. This is one of the most elegant yet somewhat polished and sharp perfumes that I have in my collection. It's needless to say, I love it, and I got myself another bottle of it. This is a bit of an experiment. This is Navy by Dana. Dana has a wide variety of scents, which I find like 30% of them are kind of classics, like our like parents' classics. 30% of them are repurposed and reformulated treasures, such as like a bunch of recipes that they bought from Ubigan and kind of like adopted for an affordable market. And about other 40% is just trash, to be honest. It shouldn't be called a perfume. That could be like easily like a bathroom refreshener, whatever. So Dana for me is very hit and miss, and considering that their perfumes are cheap, it's easy to actually overshop them and buy like a dozen of glass bottles that you don't know what to do with. Luckily for me, sampling Navy, and this is Navy for women, was a very, very lucky blind buy. So I have a splash bottle of think it's 15 mil. And this is a very pleasant, powdery, kind of like baby talc type of fragrances. So as you can see, I very confidently going down the bottle here. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna end up having by next spring, because this is just very comforting. At the same time, it's not cuddly, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's a very, I get very clear-headed, oddly enough, when I wear this. So I got myself a backup. I bought these two for probably under $3 each. And it's not an expensive cologne. Is it cologne, perfume? I don't know. But almost immediately after I started talking about it on my other channel, the prices shot up. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. All I know that allegedly some online shops count clicks, and if people click on a certain perfume a lot, they just, they keep increasing the price for each additional, let's say, 100,000 clicks. Don't quote me on that, but a lot of the ticket booking agencies do that, hotel booking agencies do that, so the auto pricing models are basically now everywhere. I feel that's something that really is happening with perfumes market as well. Anyway, I really enjoy it. It's one of the cheap, powdery fragrances that makes you think of the kind of 50s, 60s era. This is probably the newest perfume that I got a double off. This is Histoire de Parfums 1876, dedicated to Mata Hari, a real historic figure, a so-called Javanese princess who was a spy, courtesan. She had like a very rich personal story. If you're curious, just read up on it. It will blow your mind. So the way that they perceived her and kind of her image is through kind of bittery, very herbal yet powdery scent. I got myself a 15 ml, fell in love with it almost instantly. Again, probably not the easiest to wear. This is very true to what niche is all about, yet I find it to be just another hypnotic scent, the one that doesn't necessarily charms everyone in the room with, like perfectly straight white teeth and like a Barbie outfit. This is not a crowd pleaser. It's more of that kind of dramatic, dark, hidden secret that you have in your life, like one of those skeletons in the closet that you just can't resist to keep opening it up and sniffing it. It's so there's something truly seductive about how powdery and bitter it is. One of the very unique scents in that particular category, even though I have a few, but it's probably the one that I would call the most sexy, just because how forbidding it is in a way. I got myself 2 bottles. Both 15 ml because I couldn't quite commit to a large bottle. I think Histoire de Parfums has 15 ml, 60 and 120. I couldn't really find a 60 ml for a good price, and I think Fragrance Bite at Canada, they were giving these basically away for like $11, so I got myself 2. I think the other one is like in my purse. And this is the one that I used to have and just randomly tracked 2 bottles down on Mercari. This is Kaliche Eau Délicate by Hermes. I bought it when I was in my 20s, I think, and again, a lot of good memories. This is such a unique, to me at least. I know that these kind of light, elegant florals are everywhere. Penhaligon's alone has probably a dozen. Diptyque, Aérien, Jo Malone, you name it. And yet I haven't found something that smells quite like Kaliche or Delicate. Has very little to do with the original Kaliche, mind you. I'm not a big fan of like oily aldehydes, the way that they used to be super popularized with Chanel No. 5, I think Amarige, original Kaliche, yada yada yada. This is a very different story, but as soon as I smelled it, I was back. Yeah, I was back into that kind of youthful, maximalist, euphoric feel of being hopeful about what life has to offer, like scared and hopeful about the whole journey and how it will unfold. So I have 2 bottles of this. This is probably the one that preserves itself the best, because I can vividly taste here the opening, like the high notes, the short molecules that evaporate the fastest. And the second bottle that I have is already, I think, half in. It's in another room. And that one, even though it's still beautiful, it clearly is missing the top notes. And that's what unfortunately happens with a lot of perfumes with time. This is why I'm no connoisseur of vintage, and almost half of the times that I tried to pursue a vintage bottle, I was sorely disappointed because it gone off, or it really significantly changed the way that the perfume smelled. It's just not an easy task, and I almost find sometimes that people who profess themselves as that they favor vintage perfumes, that they don't necessarily favor how the perfumes were made, because they don't know how they smelled back then. Because what they smell is a very particular chemistry that happens with a lot of oxidization, a lot of other chemical reactions when the perfume aged. It's like, like when some people say they prefer older Victorian colors while having no idea what those colors actually looked when painted fresh. It's a very fascinating story, actually, and maybe we'll talk about another time. But anyway, enough of that. Another perfume that I just keep replacing. I don't have a double of it, but it's probably my third bottle, and I got myself like the biggest one I could find. This is Jennifer Aniston by Jennifer Aniston. This is her original perfume. I fell in love with it way before I realized that it's basically a very sweet, somewhat sugary jasmine type of fragrance. I just thought it was soothing, and oddly enough reminded me of my grandmother. I don't know if she ever wore jasmine scents. It was just like a cozy, sweet scent that I used for bed. Ever since I started digging more into notes and educating myself on like how the perfumes are composed and what drives what, including like certain names of the chemicals that produce a particular olfactory impression, I realized it might be not even the richest or the best jasmine on the market, but I love it. It's just, like sometimes more complex versions you wear once and you are more than ready to put it back on the shelf for another month. This is something that I just enjoy wearing almost every night if I'm in that kind of mood. So a third bottle, and I hope it will not be discontinued and I'll be able to keep repurchasing it. And the last one that I don't have with me because it's in the other room. It is I Love Love by Moschino. Let me count. Now I have like a huge bottle of it. It's like 120 ml maybe. This, it's either 4th or 5th bottle that I'm buying. I Love Love by Moschino is the smell of Fanta. It's the smell of this like orange soda drink. It's unapologetically synthetic. There's not much to it rather than what I just described, but I love it so much. It's just the smell of happiness. It's the smell of vacation, of, summer break. It's just, it takes me to a happy place without really loading my brain with too much to think about. To round it up, first of all, I'm super curious to know, Do you have any perfumes that you've been like, like on the fifth bottle at this point? Because I feel like it's almost a dying trend. It's either you don't use perfumes at all, or you become, like a perfume maniac like me, or like most people in the online perfume community, when it's just like 200 bottles, 500 bottles, 700 bottles, 1,000 bottles, things like that. And it's always chasing like the new thing. There's almost never, it's not even possible to finish up the collection as it stands right now, even less so to get yourself a backup or like keep rebuying the same bottles. So even more precious it is to share the names of fragrances that really got that cult status in your life. Please let me know. I would love to learn more about the kind of perfumes that were so special to you that you like keep repurchasing the same over and over and over. I'm like super curious. For me, probably at this point, surely like there's a whole perfume life that I barely remember because I didn't track it back in the day. Like the websites were not really around to do that also. But in terms of memories, I think the most repeated perfume in my life, at least to date, and mind you, I'm more into like diversity. I'm not really a person of like one blouse, one bag, the kind of stuff, and one signature perfume. So it's really not quite my cup of tea to even go into a like, do finish repeat kind of mode. But I think Anglemania. So I have two. I finished third, and I think before that, in different times, I used up 2 or 3. So either 5 or 6 bottles of Anglemania went through my life. Well, 2 are still in my future, but like it's probably the most repeated perfume in my history, unless I'm forgetting something. Otherwise, some of these purchases are perfumes that I love, but I'm not sure I actually need a backup. You know what I mean? Like, I don't regret getting it. But if I'm completely, brutally honest with myself and with you, there is a non-zero probability that one day I'll wake up and I'll just like sell them off. So in a way, it's some kind of like, it's both love for the scent, for a good deal that I got on getting them, and potentially an opportunity to sell it for more when it, when it becomes more rare, discontinued, when it like, because Serge Lutens, I believe, age fairly well and they're very resellable. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess it's another great question to you guys. What brands do you think are more of a kind of investment? What kind of fragrances or brands overall, that if you spend your money, you will always at least get it back, if not like with a surplus because of certain rarity factor and things like that. Because I find that most of the designer perfume market, it's like burning money, especially buying things full price, unless it's just you're chasing the experience of purchasing itself, right? Like an experience of trying something new, which I guess has value to some people. When it comes to just buying bottles in order to sit on them and resell them later, it's a tricky business. I think probably a fair statement for all collectors, niches in a way. But I find that this I got partially because I thought I could always resell it. This I got because I was scared I will never find it again. Even though Anglemani is not that expensive online, you can comfortably find it, I think, for under $100, more or less. More expensive than in the past, obviously, but you can find it. But I still kind of like, I think this is the most hoarding type of instinct that I've got so far, because I was just didn't want to be without it. I wanted to have at least one thing that I can go back to, that kind of pulls me like a thread, pulls me through many years. And for better or for worse, I'm not saying that this is the best perfume ever made. You know what it means? Like, it's just at this point it's personal. And yeah, probably the most repurchased and the most cherished because of my own life is Anglamania by Vivienne Westwood. Otherwise, all of these are great. I'm not proud that I have backups, to be honest. It's against my policy, but I thought I would share with you because I think there is a story and there is something special about these fragrances, since I actually stepped over my usual rules and bought a backup of them. Yeah, I'll be waiting for your comments. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Please like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this video.